friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Hello, everyone. You are listening to the MC Lars podcast, the bi-weekly long-form podcast where I talk to fellow rappers, musicians, educators, DIY mavericks, and content creators about their creative processes and influences. Today is Monday, December 7th. This is episode 113, brought to you by the Patreon Larsens. If you want to support me on Patreon, just log into patreon.com/MCLars, and you can listen to my Lars Wars series, my Marvel songs. I've got over 100 songs on there, and if you subscribe, you get my back catalog. If you subscribe at certain levels, you get videos, behind-the-scenes essays, all sorts of flavor. It's really fun, and I appreciate the Patreon supporters. So shout out to the old ones, Joshua, Thomas, and Nick. Shout out to the new ones, Tony, Sarah, and Belmura. We have a Four-Eyed Horseman show happening December 26th, and I'm playing First Night Monterey remotely with my bass player and my guitarist on New Year's Eve. So there's a lot going on. This week, we have George Vlahakis, who is the manager of Twiztid. He runs Majik Ninja Entertainment, and he runs Astronomicon, and he talks about his foray into the music industry, working for Anybody Killa, who is an artist on Psychopathic Records, going on to work for Insane Clown Posse, booking the Gathering of the Juggalos. And there's been controversy because when Twiztid left Psychopathic Records, there was an acrimonious split. And we don't get too into it. We talk a little bit about it on Hatchet Chat, my YouTube show. But it's this question of what happens when the mainstream wagon to which your brand is tied to starts to lose steam. You know, Twiztid has said that one of the reasons why they left Psychopathic Records was one of their albums they didn't feel had a good enough distribution. And there was a lot of infighting and, you know, stuff that went on where people questioned the motives of a lot of behind the scenes, you know, stuff that goes on. I mean, hip hop is a very competitive genre, and you don't always want to be in the shadow of the people who put you on. And so, but at the same time, loyalty is important. And so, you know, I try not to really take a side in any of this, but it's interesting to hear George's account of how he worked super hard with the opportunities he had through Psychopathic to launch Twiztid and their label. And Majik Ninja Entertainment, that's a reference to a line from Big Money Hustlers, which was a movie Twiztid was in, ICP's first movie they made, and then they made a sequel. And Twiztid and ICP did stuff for years, and it was kind of like a shock to a lot of the Juggalos when they split because, you know, people saw them as one big family. And then Majik Ninja signed a lot of the other artists from Psychopathic. And anyway, but this week we talked to George about his experience, his business acumen, everything he does for Jamie and Paul, who are the two dudes from Twiztid. And we don't talk about this, but after this interview, Jamie contracted COVID-19. So he's been recovering, and it's just been a crazy year for the Juggalo community. It's been a crazy year for the whole world, but this was fun. So, George, thanks for being on the podcast. His parts were engineered by Fritz the Cat, who actually produced one of my favorite Twiztid records, Mirror Mirror, and I got to FaceTime with him as he set up the session. And then we had some audio problems that Fritz fixed. So shout out to Fritz. Thank you for doing that. We're going to hear a song at the end from Twiztid's new album, Revelation. It's called Hallelujah, featuring Young Wicked. And so that's what's up. So this is my interview with George Vlahakis on the MC Lars podcast. All right, friends, you are tuned to another exciting episode of the MC Lars podcast. I'm here with George Vlahakis of Majik Ninja. You also run Astronomicon, amongst other things. What's up, George?
How are you today?
I am grateful that we're able to talk because I've known about you for a long time. We met officially at Warped Tour when you were out with Twiztid.
We've talked numerous times. The first time I think we officially met, you're right, was Warped Tour. I wish we could do 10 more Warped Tours. It was a lot of fun.
I was talking to my bass player about how like this summer it would have been such a bummer to like be booked on Warped Tour and if it were like canceled, right? Like it's such a crazy thing that Warped Tour's done and now couldn't even exist, right?
It's insane. This has been a very, very interesting year. But content-wise, we're going to be pumping out a lot more than we had planned. Not being on the road in April and May like we had planned. Actually, the benefit, I guess, will be a ton more new music from everybody on MNE, including Twiztid.
So do your artists record at the studio there, or do they record remotely?
So most of it comes out of here, which is the dojo, which is in the MNE headquarters. And right now, Boondocks is here recording his new album. Blaze just wrapped his, and it's in the mixing process now. Twiztid's here weekly, multiple times a week. And then when it comes to the out-of-state acts that don't want to come in, it's not that they don't want to come in, it's just right now things are very, very weird in regards to flying and driving and all that fun stuff. So all the other guys have home setups, and I'm perfectly fine with them staying home, recording at home, because it's a lot safer than commingling a bunch of out-of-state people here, because who knows from point A to point B where everybody's been, because it's such a awkward and weird time.
You guys are waiting. You have no tours really announced yet, huh? You're waiting to see.
We rescheduled the spring tour for summer. So we were supposed to be out all of April. And then once COVID hit, me and our agent thought it would be wise to reschedule for the summer. And then we realized we can't do summer either. And then we were getting ready to reschedule a third time. And I'm like, listen, let's just cancel it and wait this out, because I have no idea. Nobody has any idea when we're going to be able to hit the road again. We want to keep the fans safe. We want to keep the artists safe, the crew. I don't expect anybody to go on tour right now for any amount of money, because it's like it's to play a different club every night, be in a different city every night, hotels, all that stuff. It's too much to ask, man. And I want to keep everybody safe. And the way I'm looking at it is we're just able to pump out more content and concentrate on things that where my mind would be on the road, being out on the road. Now I'm able to be home and concentrate on other aspects of the business a little harder. And we've just been pumping out new product and new music and being able to plan things out with a little more thought. It's like, oh, we got to leave next week for tour. Oh, we got to leave this weekend. There's been none of that. So really there's been no interruptions, and everybody's been able to work diligently, and we're getting stuff done.
So how many releases does your label put out a year? Is there an average number? Average number,
I would say when we first started, so we started the record label in 2014 officially. It was Twiztid, Blaze, and ROC, 2012 and 13, end of 2012, all of 13. And then 2014, we created MNE. And at that point, our goal was like 12 releases a year. Let's get 2016 and 17, we were pumping out every month there'd be something. And at a certain point, I was like, well, let's, pull back a little so everybody gets a little more time with marketing and promo, or we can double people up, and put out 2 releases on the same day, and that helps each artist. Like, for example, Generation Nightmare, which was Twiztid's album last year, we doubled that up with Al Azul Alu's Church Azul. And it helped because we had a dual bundle where you can save money, buy them both, and, offer different merch products, and everything shipped on the same day. So it was like double excitement for one. Instead of one release, you had 2 releases, and everybody was really excited about it. So we've tried different things throughout the years, but I would say the average would probably be 7 releases a year. And this year, we're on par. Let's think about this. This year we had Mad Season drop randomly, which was Twiztid CD. That was a surprise release. Lex's Party Castle. We'll have Boondocks and Blaze this year. Young Wicked's got his mixtape. Axe Murder Boys released Fatality. Lex is turning in his second EP to Friday. I was going to say today, but Friday. So that's 7 right there. And then we've got Zool, Ala Zooloo, they're dropping one. So we're scheduled to go back to when we first started and maybe have 12 or more releases, to be honest with you, thinking about it.
Thanks, COVID. Right.
Like, if there's a positive, at least people have something to look forward to. I know concerts, it's not as exciting as seeing, well, I'll take that back. A new album is exciting, just as exciting, but seeing the guys and the artists in the flesh, being able to meet them at a meet and greet, like, I understand there's two different levels of excitement there. The live aspect, which you don't get at all, and the CD aspect when an artist drops a new album. So we're trying to keep everybody happy, which is hard to do. And hopefully when shows come back, we're just going to keep moving and rock tours like we did last year.
So, George, when an artist signs with MNE, what is a typical deal? Like, without getting into the specifics too much, do you like to sign artists for a few albums and develop them? Do you like to do one-offs? What is your preferred way to do business with new artists?
We usually cater the deal to the artist, meaning like we have 4 records that we want, ideally, but if it works out differently, if an artist is slower, we work with them. If they're quicker, I mean, we'll go as long as they want to go with us. You know what I mean? So the development side of things, we've signed brand new artists like Lex the Hexmaster, and he's been here for a few years, and he's pumping out content left and right. Then we went ahead and started the sub-label, Welcome to the Underground, which we wanted to keep that separate from the label, and that gives me more time, and especially now with not being on tour, I can sign a band like the Horror and work with them from the ground up. You know what I mean? And really get involved. So it depends on the situation. I mean, we've developed artists from the ground up that nobody knows. We've signed artists like Boondocks and Blaze, who people are familiar with. We're sort of all over the place,
Some of these artists, actually, I guess you could say a lot of the artists on Majik Ninja were ones you'd worked with and known previously. So that leads us to the next topic. Talk a little bit about how you met Jamie and Paul and how you got involved in the music industry and coming from the Juggalo world. Like, what's that whole story? Because it's interesting.
So that story, depending on how much time we have, well, it all started back in middle school, high school for me. Not when I met Jamie and Paul, but as a fan, I met them then. But professionally, that wasn't until later on. But I managed my best friend, AJ, who goes by the name of Ajax, and we went to school together. So 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, we're Juggalos, we're hanging out in middle school, and he's like, "Hey man, so I want to be a rapper." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's cool. Like, let's figure it out." So I went to his house, and this is going way, way back. So call it 6th grade, taking the bus home to AJ's house, go to his house, and he's got a cassette player and like a Little Tykes mic hanging from the ceiling, and he's burning over he's dubbing over a copy of some cassette tape, and we're like, okay, let's try this. So I made the beats that day. He rapped, and it was god awful. I mean, I realized that day, I'm like, you know what? Musically, maybe that's not your thing, George. And finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to be your manager, man. So I ended up being AJ's manager. And from there, we went through high school. And once I graduated high school, I started getting into booking shows, local concerts, renting out VFW halls, renting out the local bar, Bullfrog Bar and Grill in Redford, Michigan. All the owners and the club promoters, I think they thought I was older than I was. I don't even know if they realized I was putting on, 21 and up shows, and I wasn't 21. Like it was just. I was just putting on these shows, booking my buddies, and doing it. And then it got to a point where AJ and my buddy Mike, who works with me now with Astronomicon and everything else, they had a good relationship with ABK. ABK and I met in 2006, and I decided I'm going to book ABK's concert at a local venue outside of Detroit. So I booked this show, and ABK was the biggest artist I had ever booked at that point. Everything else was on the local level. So I'm booking this national act at a place called the Modern Exchange in Southgate. And the front of this venue was like a thrift shop. And then you'd walk through this thrift shop, and there was a big open space with a stage. And they had professional production. I mean, it was crazy. It was like you wouldn't even know it was there. So I book ABK that night. The show goes well, so well that he's like, hey, why don't you book my tour? And I'm thinking to myself, I've never booked a fucking show outside of Detroit, like the surrounding area, but I'm like, I don't even know what, I mean, I know what a map looks like, but distance-wise, I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking all these things, and out loud, I'm just like, yeah, oh, totally. Yeah, sure, I'll be here.
What year are we talking, George?
June of 2006.
Okay.
And instead of me like explaining it out loud, I thought all of these thoughts, like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, ooh, it's a great opportunity, but I'm a little nervous. You know what I mean? But I grabbed an old tour book that I had acquired, and Mike had a couple of them, my buddy Mike, and these tour books were like, it happened to be a Twiztid tour book, funny enough. So this Twiztid tour book had a routed tour with promoter contacts, and I'm like, you know what? If I just look at this, I can call these promoters and book a tour. And I did. I booked ABK's Tour of Life, and that tour was June of 2007. That was my first official national tour. And I'll tell you what, looking at it now, it was routed poorly. Like, we drove from New York down to Virginia, back up to New York, back down to North Carolina. I mean, it was quite the tour, but I was getting my feet wet. I was like, this is interesting. I sort of like being a booking agent. So I did the booking agent thing, and ABK was really cool. He taught me a lot. He let Ajax come on tour with him, so it was like a best of both worlds. My boy that I was managing got the tour with ABK, and ABK allowed me to book his tour, so I got to meet these promoters and learn the ropes and do everything from run merch to advance the show to book the tour. I was doing, wearing many hats on that run, and I loved it because it taught me a lot. And then from there, I continued to book for him. And then a friend of mine who worked with Twiztid said, hey, man, the Twiztid guys really need some help, and they want to talk with you. And I'm like, okay, I'd love to. I mean, as a fan of their music, I was honored. I was like, holy shit, like Jamie and Paul want to talk? Like, that's great. So I remember meeting them at the Lotus Pod to have a discussion, and, we just talked about some press stuff, some tour props, just some random business, that they wanted somebody sort of to assist them with. And it turned into like, they were like, hey, do you want to manage us? And this was in 2009. So we went from 2006 to 2009 now. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. And they were just wrapping, I think, their Wicked album at the time. And we started talking about managing and what I do from tour manager to regular manager. And then Psychopathic Records actually offered me a job. So it all sort of spawned into this, like, okay, I can help everybody kind of situation, which I didn't mind at all. And I had dealt with Psychopathic Records once in the past before they offered me the job, and that was to book a tour in 2008 called the Shock Therapy Tour. So they called me in, actually ABK got me that gig, and was like, hey, they need you to book a tour for everybody on the label except for ICP and Twiztid. So it was Blaze, ABK, Boondocks, Ex Murder Boys, and I was like, okay. So that's where I got my like first initial introduction to inside of Psychopathic Records. And then after that tour, I was back to school. I was in college at the time, and then Twiztid brought me in to say, hey, want to manage us? But instead of managing them at that time, I ended up acquiring this job at Psychopathic, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to help everybody. And then I booked that gathering of 2009. So that was the 10th annual gathering, and I was in charge of booking all the acts. Another situation where I thought it out in my head a dozen times when I was asked. I was honored, you know what I mean? But in my mind, I'm like, they want you to book Ice Cube. They want you to book Guar. Like, holy shit. Like, I'm just, but out loud, I'm like, I'm down. I'm in. When do I start? What do I do? What's the budget? Blah, 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 right? And I got them Ice Cube, which was mind-blowing. Like, it was a team effort behind the scenes, meaning like, we had to work. I couldn't just throw numbers out there. It wasn't my company, you know what I mean? So me and Bill, worked on it, and Tom, who worked there at the time, and, I acquired Ice Cube, which I was through the roof excited. I'm like, holy shit, Ice Cube? Like the Ice Cube? And I was so nervous until, that day when he pulled up, because, I booked him through a legit agent and everything, but it's sort of surreal, you know what I mean? And I'm like, until this guy shows up, I'm sweating, you know what I mean? And then when Ice Cube showed up, I was like, holy fuck, I pulled it off. This is crazy.
That's what's up.
Yeah, so that was like, I sort of jumped, I didn't jump right in, but I jumped right into like that stature of artist, you know what I mean? I was like, holy shit. But during all that, I was working with Live Nation locally on the street team. And I was like their Juggalo guy. Like they were like, hey, Cottonmouth Kings are coming to town. Hey, Twiztid's got a show. Clutch Cargo's in Pontiac. Hey, ICP's got Hollow Wicked. Or hey, Tech Nine's coming to town. And I'd be in charge of doing the route, booking the local group who's going to open the event, and hitting all the record stores with flyers and posters, and sometimes selling tickets for them. Like basically whatever Live Nation needed me to do, I did. So, I sort of like to say that I dabbled in all that, because even though it wasn't a shitload of money in my pocket, I was like, all right, you're living at home with your parents, you're in college, you're young enough, I don't have a family, I don't have kids, so I'm thinking to myself, try to do it all, just so you can sort of get a taste of all sides of this industry. I knew this is what I wanted to do, but I also, wanted to make sure I touched on almost every, every kind of situation, whether it's booking agent, manager, promotions. I wanted to make sure I was well versed, you could say, so I actually knew what I was doing to a point. You know what I mean?
What did you major in, George?
Business administration. Once I ended up focusing on business administration, and then I started taking classes willy-nilly to sort of learn, like, there was a music law class about copyrights and contracts. I took that, even though it had nothing to do with what I was majoring in. I'm like, take that class, take the marketing class, take the PR class. I just, at a certain point, just started taking classes to learn. And,
right.
It's sort of crazy, but it's not, because I was in a situation where I was like, I sort of need to know these things. You know what I mean? And it helped. It helped. I mean, college helped for sure. But from there, after that first gathering, then it was like, okay, well, that full-time job still existed at Psychopathic. So I had to make a decision, because I'm like, I was legit in school. Then I'd leave the office early to catch a class, or I'd come to the office later because I had a morning class. And Psychopathic was really cool and understanding, like with the college thing, but it became a certain point where I had to choose. I'm like, do I keep, like, what do I do? And my gut told me, stay here and just learn. You know what I mean? And keep it going. So then I went on to do the 2010, 11, and 12 gathering. So I got 4 gatherings under my belt. And the first one was just booking it. And then the next few was everything. Like from the production to the staging to booking all the bands to the porter potties to the insurance, like every aspect of it I pretty much touched on, and it was my responsibility to make sure everything was good. It was a great learning experience.
And a huge cultural institution to like manage and like all the history of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was, I looking back, I'm like, I guess the gatherings I put together with them, ICP was very hands-on. Their manager, Bill, was very hands-on. Like, it was a group effort planning, but when it came down to it, it's like if anything fucked up, it felt like it was on me. So I had that pressure, but it wasn't a bad pressure because I sort of enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. You know what I mean? It was, and there were some good times and a hell of a learning experience. Like I couldn't learn that in school at all. Like that was hands-on experience for sure.
And I'm sure the insurance, like all the stuff you had, like logistics, the legal stuff, that was a whole thing, right? Because that festival's known to. I remember we played 2 years ago, and the people shooting fireworks off in the crowd. I was like, wow, this is not Warped Tour. This is different. And so being on both sides, like, man, it's exciting, but it's also a wild thing. The rumors are true.
It was out of, I had gone as a fan every year, except for, I missed one at that point, which was the Peoria gathering, which was the third gathering. But as a fan, I had gone from the first one all the way through the one I booked, except for Peoria. Like I said, the third one was the only one I missed. So going in as a fan, it's mind-blowing to then be in charge of the event. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, holy shit.
I read Tom Dubb's book, and he talks about the early years of Majik Ninja. So at what point did you and Twiztid, were you like, okay, well, we're going to do our label and try this on our own?
They did Magic Records with Tom. That was, and that was, I want to say that was 2003, 2004 Green Book era.
Okay.
So I didn't know Tom at all. I never met that Tom. Like the Tom I worked for and with at Psychopathic was a different Tom. Like I'd seen him as a fan, but like never worked with the guy. So they did that for a little bit, but Jamie and Paul and our relationship was still going, from Psychopathic. I worked there. They were signed to the label. Everything was good. In 2012, after that last gathering I put together, I had gotten it was a situation where I think they ended up, the conversation at Psychopathic at the time was, okay, we've got Jump Steady, which is Joe's brother, coming back into work. He's going to be handling a lot of the stuff you're handling, but we still want you, for the gathering. We still want to call you in to book tours and do this and that. But what is it, George, that you want to do? And I'm like, well, to be honest with you, Twiztid constantly asked me to tour manage them. And I would love to go out and tour manage a Twiztid tour. And, I can do that. And then when I get home, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? So I knew in my head that, I don't want to say my days were numbered at Psychopathic by any means, but there wasn't like a for sure full-time job there at that point. So I was like, okay, what you need to do is go with sort of what my gut was telling me, which was Jamie and Paul and I always got along. Always, there was never issues. We'd shoot the shit. And I just felt comfortable with them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if they want me to tour manage them, I'm a fucking idiot if I don't. Like, this is a great opportunity. So once I sort of realized after that 2012 gathering, I'm like, well, if they're going to bring Jump Steady in, Rob, and he's sort of going to be doing what I'm doing, I think I need to do what my gut's telling me, which is let's go tour manage Jamie and Paul. And then that turned into Jamie and Paul saying, listen, why don't you manage us? And I'm like, I think that's a great idea. So I started managing Twiztid and tour managing Twiztid at the same time. And at that point, Abominations came out. And Abominations came out October of 2012. And we were on the Abominations tour. And, that's when everything sort of came into play. And we ended up leaving Psychopathic Records. And then in 2014, we had the discussion of a record label. Because, again, it was just Twiztid when we first left. Then we added Blaze and ROC to the roster, but it was legit just Twiztid LLC. Like we had the Skull Lungs logo, and we had thought about the record label side, but we didn't have a name, we didn't have an idea. And in 2014, with a lot of brainstorming and a list of 150 names or so, we kept checking trademarks. Either they were taken or there was a story behind it. And we went through so many different names and ideas. And then I was like, not me, Jamie, Paul, and I all together were like, Majik Ninja Entertainment seems right. I mean, and I'm glad we went with it because I think it's built into something pretty cool, and I'm really proud of it, as are the guys. And it's amazing that we're able to do this on our own for so long. And I mean, when we started this partnership together, we legit, started from the ground up. You would think we had a bunch of, money tucked away to dump into it. Like legit, we started this from the ground up together. And then moved into Majik Ninja, and now we're still in the Majik Ninja era of things, and it's been fucking great. It's been great.
When I'm trying to get friends of mine who might not necessarily be Juggalo fans or horrorcore fans, when I try to get them into Twiztid, I show them the We Don't Die video, and I show them the Mutant X performance from the Freak Show DVD.
Yeah,
at one of the gatherings. Those are so iconic of the era of like the early 2000 horrorcore. So I guess my question is, when you guys left, how did you decide which of the old catalog you wanted to re-release on Majik Ninja?
We left with no catalog, zero catalog. We created For the Fam Volume 2, which was a freebie that we gave away. So it was like a mix of new and old music. And then A New Nightmare came out, and that was the first offering. And that was technically, A New Nightmare is technically our first master that we own. From A New Nightmare, we started working on The Darkness. And then that's when the guys were in the middle of The Darkness, I want to say we got a call to do another Dark Lotus record. And I was like, well, that sounds great. And instead of taking a monetary buyout, we did some trades. And I think throughout the years, we've done good business together where Psychopathic Records and MNE were able to work out the deals. I don't want to get into the deals, but I mean, they were pretty good situations for both parties where it was like a trade, you could say. And we acquired some of the catalog. So I'm very happy with the outcome. Abominations and Wicked were acquired, which were two very strong albums that Jamie and Paul, absolutely loved and still love. And then we eventually acquired Mutant and The Green Book. So all those albums are Green Book is like an old school classic, and Mutant, I saw a lot of potential with because it's very rock oriented. And with us doing Warped Tour, which I didn't know we were doing Warped Tour when we acquired Mutant, but I had an idea that we were going to go down that rock lane a little more. So I was like, that's a great album to own because it's such an underrated Twiztid album. It's a really good CD, and it was Fritz and Twiztid, and they fucking nailed it. And I think it was one of those albums that was sort of like ahead of its time in the Twiztid catalog. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, there's a lot of rock in Twiztid's catalog. A lot, there's a mix of rock and rap, but Generation Nightmare really spawned a lot of that rock Twiztid from that Mutant era. You know what I mean?
With the young kids doing music like screamo trap and like the amalgamation of metal, it's come around, right?
Yeah, it really has. And I mean, ahead of their time in many ways. Like the Purple Show was a DVD,
Right.
but I mean, before it was a DVD, I remember as it being a young Juggalo, taking an hour to download an episode and watch it. Like while they were on the road, they'd be uploading these, Purple shows, and I don't even think they were on the road. I just remember sitting there for an hour and downloading it on my computer, and there was no YouTube. Holy shit! Like they were doing YouTube vlogs before YouTube was a thing. You know what I mean?
Have you heard of this management thing called the Peter Principle? Have you heard of this theory?
I haven't. No, tell me about it.
So basically, it's this management idea that you rise to your highest level of incompetence. So it's like you're going to keep getting promoted until you're at a level where like your skill set does not meet what is required of you to grow the business. And here's your story where you show up for the gathering, you show up to help with the psychopathic roster, you help launch artists and start your own label. It's because you've had the energy and focus and desire to kind of manifest the Peter Principle and prove that the only limits are kind of like as far as you want to take things. And so I think for the audience listening to our podcast, that's really inspiring, because I think it's easy for indie artists to get discouraged, but it really comes to like having a good team, having a good vision, and being good to the fans. And I remember seeing you guys at Warped, like how long the line was and how Jamie and Paul met everyone. So what are some ways you guys try to keep the fans happy and try to like keep the Juggalos aware of what you're doing, but in a way where it also feels fresh and new? Like, how do they balance, being there for the fans, but also like building and creating new experiences?
Again, it goes back to, yes, having a great team. So here at our office, we've got people doing what they're absolutely good at. You know what I mean? Which is great, because with that team and Jamie and Paul's influence and us, just if I forget something that's merchandise related, I've got Jason in my office that sort of catches me and says, no, we should do this because, George, you're trying to create this merch product that is similar to one that we offered already that's quote unquote limited or this and that. Like, don't, remember, George, this is something that we've done. Or I've got Mike, who handles Astronomicon, and Dustin, who also helps him with Astro. And it's like, we're all here to sort of catch each other and work together. My buddy James in the warehouse, it's like everybody's here doing it with a purpose, and we're all here to sort of catch each other and work together. And Jamie and Paul are heavily involved in almost every aspect, but they also let us steer every once in a while. It's not like they're micromanaging us to a point where, I got to get every little thing approved, or if they have an idea, I'm not just shooting it down. Like, we all work well together here to where it's new and exciting every time. Like, we've put out so many records, so many albums, but for some reason, every time I'm excited thinking about new pre-order products that we can partner with it. Like today I was working on Lex the Hexmaster's pre-order products, and I actually, right before you called, I approved this really kick-ass sublimated jersey, and I'm like, it's just fun every time. It's just, I don't know. I really don't know, other than that the team here works so well and we all get each other, and like Jamie and Paul are so involved because they want to make sure that we don't turn into like super robot corporate kind of label where you sort of lose touch with the fans. Like, we never want to lose touch with the fans. So whether it's them doing ashtrays and action figures or signing autographs at Warped Tour at the merch booth, or it's like, you got to remember that the interaction goes further than just, a tweet. You know what I mean? Like, I know now with COVID, meet and greets aren't a thing, but hopefully we get things turned around where they are a thing again. But there's so many different ways to interact now that I think a lot of artists sort of forget the ways they interacted in the 90s or the early 2000s. And some of the artists weren't even around then. But Jamie and Paul observed. They were a part of meet and greets. They saw things, and they always come back and make sure that, if we're putting together a exclusive merch package, or if we're going out on tour, or offering and selling a VIP, they're like, we don't want to just charge money for our autographs. We don't want to just charge money for people to talk to us for a minute and then get rushed out. Like, you better make sure you got some solid merchandise products attached to that VIP, man, and make sure that we're not just doing, here's a free pass, an 8x10, and a slap on the ass on the way out. Like, it's really those two that never really forgot where they came from, and they're very appreciative of where they came from, and they just take that, and they've learned so much over the years that if I start getting an idea of I guess a comfort zone of a VIP or a meet and greet, or they sort of shake me out of it, and they're like, George, like, we don't want to be so, I guess I'm trying to think of the right word, like, where artists just end up being more robotic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not as fun. And it's like, are they even enjoying it? Like, this is a really awkward meet and greet. Like, that's just the worst feeling as a fan to go through a meet and greet. You pay all this money. And I'm going back to meet and greet because it's the best example, I think, to sort of answer your question of, like, everybody does it. Everybody does it. And at a certain point, it becomes so robotic and fake. But we're not so robotic that we don't give a shit about the fan. You know what I mean?
You kind of appreciate the other side of it, right? And I'm sure like that they value that perspective.
I would agree. Yeah. Rather than, me knowing nothing. If I didn't know anything about the Juggalo culture and didn't know the Twiztid history, like, sure, like, you don't have to know all that to be a band's manager. But I do think it helps with the more personal side of things to connect with the customers and the fans and the Juggalos and everybody. Like I know it because I lived it. I was there as a 13, 12-year-old kid, partying in the parking lot and watching the show and running to the merch booth and looking at what they were offering. And I know I have, $500 to spend and I just got to burn it. What do I want? Like, I know that feeling. I know it. And right. I haven't forgotten that. And I think having, me being in charge of the company, but also having a great team around me, it just makes it better. You know what I mean? And it makes us not forget about before we had MNE or Twiztid, remember 15, 20 years ago. It's like there's so mmany examples that we never really forget, and we're just here to create new ideas and just try them. Nobody's nobody's telling us what to do. We have full freedom. So the only person stopping us is us. So if we want to release 3 albums this year, who's stopping us? You know what I mean? If we want to experiment and do this or that, like, the only people stopping us is us. So it's pretty cool to be able to work with some good people that actually get it, and we all have the same goal in mind, and that goes for Blaze and Boondocks and Young Wicked and everybody. It's like we work very well together, and we all get each other to that point where it's here and just still fun. It's actually fun. I enjoy coming to the office. 2
of my favorite of the old Twiztid records are Fatso and Chainsmoker, the two solo joints. Do you think they'll ever do solo records, the 2 guys?
I don't know why they haven't, but I think it's possible. We've discussed it briefly, but then it just they get back into a Twiztid record, which I'm fine with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just prefer to work with each other than solo, but which is great. After 20 plus years, 25 years of being together, like, they've only done 1 solo record each. I think that's pretty impressive and says a lot for the group as like a duo. You know what I mean? But I think they'll fuck around and do a solo record one of these days, but it could happen.
When you guys are like brainstorming a record or A&Ring the record or figuring out what to go on it, do you guys kind of have meetings about the concepts, or will they come to you and be like, okay, these are our songs, they're already written? Like, how involved are you with the product from the beginning?
It's all them. Those 2 come up with the concepts, the songs. Occasionally I'll chime in, or if they ask somebody at the office, like, what do you think of this line? Or, they're those 2, do it all in the studio with Fritz. It's those three that are constantly recording something, and barely ever is there a meeting about, okay, we need 12 songs, and make sure you have your weed song, and make sure you have this song. It's those two. Those two come up with it all on the music side, and it's my job with an album to make sure we meet the deadline and stay on a schedule, make sure the producers are in play, and basically take whatever idea they have and start sketching out album covers and concepts and this and that. But then again, Jamie and Paul are very hands-on there too. Like they know what they want usually, and it's our job to take their ideas and create it and see where it goes. So, there are plenty of meetings about, album names and maybe a couple songs here and there, but 95% of that creative process is those two in the studio. I mean, creating the convention that Twiztid's been talking about doing for, it feels like 10 years, but working with them for almost 8 years. It's like we brought up this convention numerous times, and it just wasn't the right time, and we finally just planned this thing for for February of every year, and it was like, wait a second, like we're able to put horror, comic books, toys, wrestling all in one event, and then add Twiztid to it, and it's just been great. So yeah, that pop culture aspect of them being toy collectors, being comic collectors, us being like me and the guys at the office, we all collect different things. It's like, yeah, we're able to, I guess I see what you're saying with what you do and what other guys do in the nerdcore world. It's like, even though you wouldn't really say, it really is in the same family. It really is, because we all enjoy, whether it be video games or it be collecting toys or comics. It's like, it's all under the same umbrella. And I'd love for you to come out to a Astronomicon and check it out, because it's sort of all over the place. It's all of our interests in one place. And I think I've realized that we share a lot of interests that the fans like. It's all similar, and they throw their ideas, and me and Mike and Dustin and the whole team will throw their ideas, and we'll create this big list, and we'll just go down that list and see who's available. And Mike was able to score Alexa Bliss through a friend last year, which was huge in the wrestling realm, and me with the horror side of things. It's like we all just work together at whatever we're good at and whoever we're interested in, and it all comes together to be one hodgepodge of I guess pulp culture madness. This is what I do for a living, and it's great. I love every bit of it.
Who are some of the artists that have particularly surprised you with how well they've been received and grown in the years you've been working with them? I would say, in a way, each one of them have brought something different, a different element. And really, I'm really proud of Lex the Hexmaster right now, because he came up with a plan this year, and he's stuck to it, and he's pumping out more content than ever. And I was in that warehouse. I was in our warehouse last week just looking at the media, and I'm like, holy shit, like, since we've signed Lex, he's put out 3 mixtapes, an EP, 2 albums. I'm like, he's done his part. Like, he is pumping it out. So, I'm really proud of him, because he again was somebody that I didn't know. I didn't know him personally. I didn't go back with him. We met for the first time ever when we signed him. And actually Paul discovered him and brought him to the table, and Jamie and I loved the idea, and seeing that he's really pumping out content more than ever. I'm very proud of him. And I'd say on the sub-label side of things, working with the guys from Oh the Horror, it's only been a few months, but they've produced more content than ever, and a lot of it is them producing it. Like, they produced their whole album, they mixed their whole album. They're already talking to me about their next release. So it's just nice to work with people that
that are motivated and sort of help me provide me with the ammo, you know what I mean, that I need. You know, I'd say I'm proud of everybody that we've put out at Majik Ninja. There's just something different about each artist, and it's a great feeling. And most of the guys on the label I go way back with, so that's great too, because the relationship's there, and there's a friendship there as well. But the new guys that I didn't know, it's, you know, it's also a great feeling because they're complete strangers at one point, and you get to know them so well that it's like, man, I hope we're working together for a very long time, because right now we've got a very solid team of artists and everybody's motivated. Something about this year, I mean, I'm sure it's the fucked up touring scenario, but it's also brought out a lot of the creative juices, I guess, where people are very motivated to pump content out. And the last year that we had like content on a monthly basis was 2017, and like I said, the only reason why we dialed it back was to sort of give everybody their space.
Making albums has gotten cheaper and making video content has gotten cheaper. So what you need to do, right, is do more and keep your brand consistent. And something cool that I've seen you grow with Screenwave and Paul Truitt is the YouTube channel.
And that's the success we've had with Oh the Horror. I mean, their first video broke 100,000 views in what felt like 2 weeks, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, just not being Twiztid, I was pretty impressed by that. And I think it's just actually I know it's because it's a different kind of sound. It's more rock, but Paul and the Screenwave folks are helpful. My buddy James helps us with that too. He's good people. It's like having the good and right people around you that are good at that. It's like I can't pretend and say that I know every facet by like the back of my hand, but I know enough, and then what I don't know, those guys are there to help, you know what I mean? And it's great. And Screenwave actually has helped with Astronomicon as well, because they do too many games, as I'm sure you're aware. Have you played that convention of theirs?
Yeah, you know, we were supposed to be on we were going to be opening for Twiztid at the one this year.
Damn.
That got so that was a bummer, but yeah, I played it 2016. I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
really
it
cool.
Seems like it, and I was looking forward to it this year, and then all this happened. So it's like, I think they'll. Actually, I'm pretty sure they'll want to do it next year with us. You know, it's just such a bummer because I know they work so hard on that event, and
yeah, man,
to keep having it be pushed back and it's like, what a headache.
I talked to Heather, and she was saying that they're going to try to keep the same lineup next year if it works with everyone's schedule. So that would be tight.
Yeah, I'll try my best to make it work, because I mean, right now we have nothing in the book, so I'll definitely make it work. but I think it would be great because it's a different. Even though it's a convention and we've played conventions before, but it's a different, it feels like it would have been a different vibe, but in a good way. You know what I mean? Just something different with new people that may have a preconceived notion of who Twiztid is, and they may walk out of there being, you know, holy shit, I actually like these guys. They're not what I thought they were.
We started talking on this episode about how you got your start working with ABK and booking tours. Like, ABK definitely opened doors. Do you think he would ever want to join Majik Ninja? Like,
I'd love to work with him in that capacity. I just think he's focusing a lot on Native World, which is his brand, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see more collabos in the future with our teams. He's on Blaze's new record. Actually being an artist on the label, I don't know. Like, there's two sides of it. There's that side of, you know, we've signed a lot of different talent from the past, and I think ABK is perfectly fine doing it the way he's doing it, but merging here and there, I think that's the answer. I think that'll excite more people, like Twiztid and ABK doing a couple tracks together, or, you know, hearing him on a Blaze album. It's like, holy shit, that's a throwback. You know what I mean? Like, it's just keeping the teams working together is my main goal in that capacity. But signing them to the label, I don't know. I don't think so, because I think ABK's got his own vision. But I still talk to him on a regular basis, and I mean, things are good. You know, the relationship's good.
Do you want to plug any social media or any new projects?
Well, I'm going to plug every Majik Ninja outlet. MajikNinjaEntertainment.com, MNEstore.com, and there's going to be a lot. You're going to want to keep your eyes on both the social media channels and of course Twiztid's YouTube channel, because we've got a lot of stuff coming up this year, a lot of surprises still. I wish I could talk about some of them, but I can't. Damn it! Expect Lex's new EP. Probably at that point, we'll have an announcement on his third EP, and Blaze will be releasing an album, and there's a lot of different stuff. Boondocks will have his album out. You know, I think we're gonna do some live concerts online. We did NetFest a few months ago, and that went well. So, you know, taking the concept of NetFest, which was like a 13-hour concert for free on a random Saturday in May, and like scaling it to a point of maybe it's Twiztid with special guests. Like, we're working on the digital side of how to keep things going. And I know it's not as exciting as seeing Twiztid in the flesh, but we're going to pump out a live concert by the end of the year, maybe multiple live concerts with different artists, and just music. Just expect a shitload of fucking music from us, and that's a promise.
That's what's up. Well, keep your ears open and keep following the artists. And George, thank you for your time, man. This has been a great episode.
Thank you so much.
Shit is so fake now. All these rappers acting so religiously. All of them say that they God, cause they rap on the song. Are you kidding me? Well, I don't believe there are God. So do me a favor and keep the facade. I give people a reason to follow. And leading Chicago, we risking the throttle, while everybody's so enamored by doing the same thing. What's your alibi? Well, to me it's a crime, and I think that it's time for the mainstream to get crucified. I got a top 5, none of y'all in it. Say what you want, I'm a paradox, #1 Tupac, the 40 water, Marshall Mathers taking mad trucks. I got a son and daughter, and I put it on them. I don't fuck around with rapping soothsayers. You know I keep it 100 like Benjamin's. I am the bringer of truth in the booth player. Hallelujah, hallelujah. From Pinewood to the moon, yeah, we get it turned up. What it do, yeah. I'm a savage like Macho Man, ooh, yeah.
I am the apple and vines in the garden, and left your decision and listen to choice. You were confusion, unable to choose in a split decision. Hear the fear in your voice. Here come the lies and the fakes. Scale to the slithering snakes. Natural reaction is just a mistake. Watch me fuck up till I'm up in the grave. Then they can laugh at me. Fuck who come after me. Those up before me are bricks in the story I'm building upon. Come for this microphone, say you're the best. You can dress like a goat, but you fall from a gun. I am an ultra being, best believing my brother is blessing with skills from the trade. Put that on everything from outer space and beyond, and from here to the grave. I ain't here to be saved. Priest, betting all that I'm a beast when unleashed. So better believe it's celestial beings. Planet on ground, but I shoot for the stars, so you know what I mean. Nothing to me, that's what you are and always made to be. Better remember it, never forget it. It's evident, bitches like you pressing charges for out-of-court settlements.
So long, and I'm telling you, business is cold, yeah. I don't need nothing for knowing I'm going up, even if I go alone, yeah. Strictly get harder, still I won't falter. I'm going hard till I'm gone, yeah. It ain't no telling me wrong, yeah. Bitch, you could put that shit on, yeah.
Don't put your hands on me, hallelujah. People believe what they wanna believe, hallelujah. Flip up the sound and change the scenery, like your mind's been away. Put your palms together as we pray. Don't put your thousands of ideas on me, hallelujah. People believe what they wanna believe, hallelujah. Flip up the sound and change the scenery, like your mind's been away. Put your palms together as we pray.
Put that on gang, 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 gang.
As we pray.
Put that on gang, 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 gang. Put your minds together as we pray.
Thank you, George. We will be back in 2 weeks on December 21st with Child's Play Ninja, who is a Juggalo YouTuber. We're returning to the bi-weekly format. I haven't talked publicly about this, but I'm starting a master's program in instructional science and technology. So it's a program I applied to through the Cal State system, wherein I can be on tour and still do some of my classes online, remotely, and also show up on campus. And I've always wanted to do my master's in something with education and media. So I got into this program, but that means I have less time to do interviews and edit these podcasts. It's all good. The podcasts that are coming out every other week are going to be twice as fresh. So don't trip. But I just wanted to give you all a heads up. If you're looking for the episode Monday, it is going to be out a week from Monday. And then on the alternating weeks, MC Snacks and I are still doing the Hatchet Chats. We are dropping our episode a week from Wednesday with a special guest, Vinny the ICP Kid from Shockumentary. So check that flavor out. My Fallen Order song is coming out on the Patreon. That's what's up. And I hope y'all doing well. Thinking about you soon. Happy early holidays. Be sure to cop your tickets for the Boxing Day show, the New Year's Eve show. It's all good. I love y'all. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Peace.